the assessment of the requirement changes. So we prioritized, and then once we get any changes in terms of the requirements, then we need to assess, we need to analyze them, we need to see the impact, and then be able to actually take a call. Again, this is perhaps in line with, again, after that you take a prioritization decision, or you say that, well, this change is acceptable, not acceptable. All of that gets done in the assessment of requirements. And as we discussed, the inputs for this as the requirements, the design, and apart from these two accepted ones, which are already there for the other activities as well, we've got something called as a proposed change. So this change is basically, you've already done something and then it was asked to change. So basically it's not new requirement, but this is a change to the existing requirement. And this change could come from anybody. It could come from the customers, it could come from the users, it could come from the team, it could come from the testers, from the senior management, from the sponsors. Anybody can propose a change, right? It's about how we would react and how we would take that change on board, then be able to assess the changes. That's what is this activity about. So what do we do here? We have a look at the change strategy. We understand, okay, if this is a change that has come through, as we discussed, how does it go through? We need to size that change. Is it small? Is it cosmetic? Is it massive change? Is it a showstopper kind of a change? And accordingly, we will take a decision. And also the scope of that. So is it something that we can take a call on as team, or is it something that we need to consult a steering committee or the change control board, organizational change control board, to take a decision on that? So those things again come into this picture. And as we discussed, domain knowledge really handy to be able to understand and do the impact analysis to be able to arrive at a decision as to the impact of that particular change. And governance approach, again, very important. Need to have the proper structure, proper procedures, and the templates, and the so we call as what we call as change request template that needs to be in place. And then we've got a change request or change control process, change control boards at the process level, at the organization level. All of them again need to be in place. And then the requirements architecture, we had discussed this in the last activity. Very important in this one as well, to be able to arrive at the overall view of how you structure the requirements. What's functional, what's non-functional. Within this functional requirement, how does that get again broken down? Is it, for example, agile context? How does that at the very high level, let's call it as an epic, what's a theme? And then from the epic and the theme, we've got the stories. From the stories, we've got those tasks and the subtasks, and then the acceptance criteria. So there's a way that you structure your requirements within the context of agile. And legal regulatory information again comes into handy, pretty much like the ones that we discussed about the insurance or the tax or actuarial information. Very important, because the business rules again come into handy. All of these are relevant to that particular industry, the domain that you have got your product work operated in. And the solution scope obviously would define how this change is going to affect the solution, whether it has got any bearing on the scope of your proposed solution or not. How is it going to impact it? Is it going to massively change the technologies, the tools that you're using? Perhaps the scope of that gets changed. Do we have to have more features, less features, all of that? Again, so what you're trying to compare with is basically take this proposed change that came in from outside or from your own team, and then compare and contrast and see the impact of that, potential impact of that on the solution, on the scope of the solution, on all these other things, on the team, the structure, the overall aspect. And then you take a call in terms of whether that's where the change assessment is done. Requirements and design change assessment would give you a go or a no-go. And that would again feed into the prioritization of the requirements. So what do you need to do here in terms of evaluation of the requirements? So when you talk about assessment, it's basically evaluation. It's about comparison. It's about understanding, analysis of that particular change. And then you would need to compare it against the requirements. It could be compared against the design, the architecture, and even potentially the solution as well, the proposed solution. What is its impact going to be on the proposed solution itself, the product that we're going to structure, the design? Is it going to significantly impact it, that we need to consider and say, hey, hold on, I think we need to just have a pause on what we're doing now. Just look at this change, see what is its effect going to be on the product, and then take an informed decision. So what are the factors that you need to address when you look at assessment of the change? So you need to look at the overall strategy. That's what we were talking about, the vision, the mission, the objectives, the tactical objectives, the overall vision of this particular the project or the product or process, and how does that fit in there? So that's important. The potential impact on the solution overall, that's, again, we discussed this. The business value to business or stakeholders. So what is the business value? So if we change this particular thing, is it going to massively affect what we're trying to deliver as value to our stakeholders, to customers and users? Or is it just going to be nothing, don't worry about it, because it's just a small little internal thing, which is with the technology, which is going to affect how we are doing this, how we're delivering that, right? In that case, there's no change in the business value, because it's a way of delivering it. Internally, if there's anything that needs to be done within the within our organization, we should be happy to accommodate, because those are smaller, those are insignificant changes. If there any roles changed that needs to be done, it's a bit of a problem, but we'll get there, right? So it's all ultimately benefiting the customer and the users. So let's do it. Even though we are at a bit of discomfort initially, we should not be worried, because it's delivering business value at our own discomfort. Time, what's the time involved? What are the resources involved? The soft resources, hard resources, infrastructure, right? And the risks and the opportunities and constraints. What are the risks involved? What kind of, we discussed there's a technology risk, business risk, market risk, people risk. Sometimes it could be letting go of some people, and getting in new people. For example, I was talking about that case where the IT support team, the whole team of about a good 17 people with huge servers and blade servers, and the whole setup of the server rooms had to be let go. And then the solution was to actually make it cloud. So we get an external party, a third party, who are capable in the cloud transformation to come in and then have a look and then help us with the going cloud, and taking this whole thing of digital transformation to the next level, the cloud transformation. So that brings both opportunities in terms of lower footage of the technology, and low maintenance of these the technology from within the organization. There are no server rooms, there's no separate team to maintain it and all that. But also the risk is basically you are actually sending out your own team who's been there with you for the last 100 years or so. The whole team, that concept of the IT team, has been there for about a good 40 years within this 140-year-old organization. So you're letting go of them, and then that's a big risk. It's a people risk. And then the other aspect of it is basically how you're going to manage it. If you've got everything up in the cloud, what's the support? What's the level of support that you've got? You don't have people to just call, within the organization, they'll come running to you and address your problem. But if it's cloud, then how does it get addressed? Who are the support people? What levels of support? What is the first line of support? What is the next line of support? What's the third line of support? Do we have email support? Do we have phone support? What are the SLAs? What are the service level agreements that you have with the cloud partners? All of these